In this week's episode of Kabaneri of the Iron Fortress, we finally get to learn what that giant black smoke kaiju beast actually is. It is an entire colony of Kabane which have actually combined together. Think of Voltron, if Voltron were made out of zombies. Another super fun episode of Kabaneri of the Iron Fortress. This one was great, with the first half of the episode being all about Ikoma and Mume as they're trapped in this underground cave, and we also get some backstory on Mume as well, actually learning that her mother was killed by a random soldier in the middle of a Kabane attack, and she was seemingly saved by some young lord, this guy who apparently is probably going to be the big villain of the show. He's also teased at the very beginning of the episode when you get to see that Mume has actually lost one of her friends who was turning into a Kabane who was killed right in front of her. And they don't want us to see this master, this young lord quite yet, but he's got some long flowing kick-ass hair, and I can't wait to learn a little bit more about this guy. I'm guessing he is also a Kabaneri just like Ikoma and Mume. Maybe even leading an entire group of the Kabaneri, that is until they suddenly turn into Kabane, which we learn in this episode might actually be a true possibility. If they don't have enough human blood, eventually they will transform into one of these creatures. One of the biggest themes from this week's episode of Kabaneri on the Iron Fortress is only the strong survive and the weak will lose. However, there was one piece of dialogue that Ikoma mentioned that I thought was really clever. When do the weak actually get to become strong? When are they allowed to have the strength? And this is all going down because Mume is about to be crushed. She's having these Vietnam flashbacks of her family and friends being killed by the Kabane, and then you got Ikoma, who's acting like a total hard-ass, taking on all of these Kabane who have come down into the underground cave, and then you got all the other human survivors up top who are trying to obtain this massive cannon weapon so that they can take down that giant colony of Kabane, while all at the same time, they do manage to save both Mume and Ikoma. And this leads to what is one of the coolest scenes from the entire series thus far, when we finally get to see this massive colony of Kabane actually trying to attack this train, which it is done in CG animation, but honestly I think it looks cool, and it makes it seem all the more otherworldly and monstrous. Especially considering how big this thing is, it can really haul ass. The way it chases after the train is absolutely horrifying, and apparently the only way to kill one of these Colony Kabane creatures is you have to find its heart. Apparently one of the Kabane within its body has actually transformed into this massive blue glowing heart-type creature. So what they're going to do is they're going to wait for this thing to get even closer to the train so they can blast it with this big-ass cannon, which will allow them to expose the heart, giving Mume the opportunity to jump in and do a lot of kick-ass wet work. This whole action scene right here is a breakneck, edge-of-your-seat scene, which was definitely the highlight of this week's episode. I especially love whenever they actually attack this massive creature, or it bumps into the train, or it gets hit, all of the Kabane start to fall off of its body and actually jump on the train and attack people. So it's another method of it being able to attack, and it's really awesome because we could see a lot of the characters teaming up. I loved the scene where Ikoma and Kurusu were on opposite sides of the train. You could see them on opposite doors, and they started to run together as they fought against the Kabane. We even got to see him using his brand new sword for the first time, which was really impressive. And Ikoma even got to use a little bit of Mume's weapons in this week's episode, even taking her bayonets and attaching it to his big steam-powered gun. The camera sweeps in this show are so damn sexy. Like, whenever a big action scene starts, they do these, like, big, long camera turns, followed by this just music which just explodes into your ear, and it's so awesome. It just gets you so pumped up for the action scenes in this episode, and when they finally expose the heart of this creature, and Mume jumps in and sees that it's human, she hesitates for just a second before jumping in and blasting this thing and destroying it, the episode ending with them just barely escaping, and you can't even breathe at that moment. And that's how they end the episode. That is how you get people invested in a series and getting them to get excited for the next episode of the series. So what's the rundown on this week's episode of Kabaneri of the Iron Fortress? This series gets better with just about every episode. I love the creativity of it, and I love the fact that there's this giant, disgusting monster which is like a combination of all of these zombie-like creatures. There's something about that that's really unique. You know, we've seen like zombie movies and zombie shows where the zombies like pile up on top of each other, but we've never seen like try to work together and form into something much larger, and I think that's really unique and just so damn cool looking. I did get some flashbacks in the previous episode of Attack on Titan now that we do have like this giant creature, but it was unique and moved different enough that it made it all the more cooler, especially when it started to climb up and jump on top of the train. Damn, that was so creepy and awesome. I loved it. And not just Ikoma and Mume and Kurusu, you also had some other great character moments. The freaking conductor of the train was badass in this week's episode. She has got some awesome muscles. Not to mention that one character who had to go underneath the train and dislodge those nasty Kabane parts to allow them to move even faster. Everybody got to do something really funny, and even Mume was really great in this episode, finally starting to show a little bit more of her vulnerability and letting us know that she's not just a hardened badass. She has seen some shit. She has extreme emotions, and she's afraid of being abandoned and turning into a Kabane herself. And she learns a lot in this week's episode, especially after spending time with Ikoma and all of the other people on the train. You can even see that she's starting to form better relationships with them, like Ikoma's friend. She always calls him Fatty. That's just really funny to me. It also helps that the series has some great production value behind it. That final scene at the end where the train is going around the corner way too fast and everybody has to get on the right side of the train to bring it back onto the tracks, just edge of my seat the whole time. I was thinking, oh man, this thing's just gonna fall off and it's gonna crumble down into this pit with all of these giant monsters and things are going to be even worse. But even though that didn't happen, I was like, yes! I was so triumphant when that happened. I literally got out of my seat and said, rock on, shoujo! Like, it was such a satisfying moment. And really, that's what's great about this show. It's a satisfying action series with some really great characters and some great production value. Maybe one of the best shows of the season, and one of the cooler post-apocalyptic zombie-type shows that I've seen in quite some time that's doing some unique things with a great art style. That's definitely my favorite thing about the show, is the art style and the character designs. They're somehow old school and new school all at the same time, and that's pretty freaking awesome. So, I loved this episode right here. I'm loving this whole series right now. I cannot wait to see what they're going to do with it. I'm going to give this week's episode right here a 5 out of 5. Action-packed, emotional, character-driven, great production value. That's Kabaneri of the Iron Fortress. And the music kicks ass too. It accentuates every single action scene in the series. So, I love this episode, but I want to hear from you guys. Did you watch this week's episode of Kabaneri of the Iron Fortress? Please tell me what you thought about it in the comments section below. If there was a kick-ass kingdom, you guys would be the rulers. Thank you for watching this review. I really appreciate it. If you guys would like to help support Super Kami Guru 9000, you can do it by liking this video, sharing it with your friends, or hell, even subscribing to the channel. That way you'll be able to see all of our latest anime and manga reviews as they're released. And make sure to check out all the cool stuff we got in the description box below. Thank you guys again for watching, and as always, stay dandy, baby!